Welcome. I'm David T. Phillips, CEO of Estate Planning Specialist, and I'm your host for the weekly podcast, Estate Planning Made Easy, a podcast focused on the idea and concept of keeping your wealth in the family. You know, the Egyptians were absolutely 100% incorrect. You can't take it with you. And so you have to have a logical distribution plan to pass your estate from one generation to the next. And if you don't, the government steps in and they have a plan for you. And today's episode is basically going to be talking a lot about that because politicians continually interfere in the world of estate planning. And I'm not really sure exactly why that is. I guess because there's no voters in cemeteries. And so I honestly think that has to be a motivation for them to get so involved in this and making sure that there is a transfer tax when we transfer our estate from one generation to the next. And depending on the country that you live in, really will bear how much tax your family will pay. For example, in France, the estate tax is 50%. After a measly 100,000 euro exclusion. That's about 110,000 US dollars. That means that after my estate is 110,000, and if I go to pass my estate to my kids or to my, not to my spouse, but to my kids or to my grandkids, they have to pay an estate tax or transfer tax, which is about 50% overall. In England, it's a little bit better. The transfer tax is 40% with an exclusion of £325,000, which is only 414,000 US dollars. I'm reminded of the Beatles song from the album Revolver. Again, the Beatles are my favorite absolute band, but this particular song really spells it out. It says, "Now my advice to those who die is to declare the pennies on your eyes, because I'm the tax man. Yeah, I'm the tax man, and you're working for no one but me." You know, in Old English tradition, mortuaries would actually place pennies on the eyes of the deceased so that they wouldn't inadvertently open their eyes during the viewings. And then anciently, pennies were placed on eyes so that there would be money to pay the ferryman as the deceased passed their final trip across the river Styx. Well, whatever motivation, when George Harrison penned those words to the taxman, he ended up moving his estate to the United States so that his family wouldn't have to be burdened with this enormous tax burden that non-noble British citizens had. And that would have been the fate for his family. So he moved everything to the United States. Well, why would he move it to the United States? Well, because our exclusion, even back then, was much higher than it was in Great Britain and in France and some of the other European countries. And so he decided to move everything to the United States. Right now, our exclusion is $13.6 million. That basically means that if I die and I'm not married and I pass and I have an estate of $13.6 million, I can pass it to my next generation without any inheritance tax, without that transfer tax. If I'm married, we both get to use the exclusion. And so that's a little over $27 million that I can pass to the next generation as a married couple. And that's amazing. It's an enormous amount. That, however, that exclusion is set to be repealed on December 31st, 2025, a date that I call the tax doomsday. In fact, in my newsletter, Generational Wealth Strategies, that we produce monthly with myself as the writing the column titled Strengthening Your Roots, and then Rick Durfee who is a founder and senior partner of the Durfee Law Group, one of the best estate planning law firms in the country. He writes a column called Sustainable Legal Solutions. And then Todd, my son Todd, the president of Estate Planning Specialists, writes a column called Safe Money Corner. And then Melody Gatz writes a column about charities and how to use charities in your plan. But in this particular newsletter in Generational Strategies, we outline the strategies that one can easily implement to make sure that you can pass the maximum to your family to create a powerful, productive posterity, which is our goal as estate planners. We hope that we pass that same goal to our clients. Well, right now, there's actually 17 states that still implement an inheritance tax. In fact, Washington State has a 20% inheritance tax. And so it's still out there. There are still states that are charging an estate tax, even though the federal government, it's kind of out of reach right now for a lot of estates. In fact, it's interesting to note that only 1,500 estates are impacted annually for estate taxes with the exclusion as high as it is. Well, with this tax doomsday looming, this exclusion is going to come back roaring to where it was before Trump was elected president. And we're thinking that the level will be somewhere between $5 and $6 million. That's what the started is going to be at that particular point in time. It's going to plummet from where it is today. And that's set by law by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that was passed in 2017. That's set to revert back to where it was before at about a $5 to $6 million clip. So there are some strategies that you need to implement now. Get those strategies in place, especially gifting strategies. If you have an estate that's significantly large, you can actually gift some of your estate now without allowing your children to have control of the estate. And so it's a very, very excellent strategy that we can help you implement. Well, how do you get to that point? Well, first of all, you have to have your estate analyzed. And to do that, you need to either fill out an estate planning profile on our website, which is epmez.com. Again, the name of our podcast is Estate Planning Made Easy. Our website is epmez.com, estateplanningmadeeasy.com. And go there and surf around, check things out, and let me know exactly, and I'll let you know exactly what strategies you would like to implement to make sure that your estate remains intact and that you properly gift your estate to whom you want to. There's another estate tax that the legislators have implemented. We call it the stealth estate tax. Stealth meaning that you haven't really planned for this and haven't seen it coming. And this estate tax is reported in my book, The Bombshell Battle Plan, which is a special report that I wrote right after the 2020 election. So it's still viable. It's still important, a report that you should get. Go to the website, epmez.com, and order the Bombshell Battle Plan, because in there, I teach you how to defend against the IRS's secret weapon. And that secret weapon really is to confiscate your IRA, your 401k, it's called qualified assets that you have. And by doing that, they're going to be taking from your kids the part of your estate that is a qualified estate. And so I teach you not only the rules, the first 23 pages of this report teach you the rules, and then the rest of it teaches you the solutions on how to avoid paying that enormous stealth estate tax on inherited IRAs and 401ks. You're not going to pay that tax because you're not going to inherit it. Your children are going to have to pay that tax. and they'll be paying it at their tax brackets. So if you have a kid that is making $300,000 a year, they'll be at the highest tax bracket, and then you add your IRA, and that tax has to be paid over a 10-year period of time. It's called the 10-year rule that was instituted here. There's a few exclusions or exceptions to the rule, but not really very many exclusions to this. And so most everybody that has an IRA, and they leave it to their children or their grandchildren, it's going to get taxed at their tax bracket when you pass away. So number one strategy, of course, with regard to your IRA is to spend it first. That should be the first money that you spend. The second strategy that we recommend that you do is that you look at taking the required distribution that you are going to have to pay, and now we get to do we have to take our distribution at age 73, but you kind of forecast what that's going to be, or if you're currently 73, what it is, and you instead of using that RMD meaninglessly, and because most people, when they're taking RMDs, they don't really need that money. They don't want that money. I mean, there are some that are using it for retirement, but for the most part, clients that we plan with their estates, they're not usually using that money aggressively. And so this is a way in which you it's called the RMD leverage strategy. And that strategy in and of itself will allow you to maximize and leverage each dollar that you have in your IRA and use that for maximum use. And it passes to the next generation 100% income tax free, which is cool because the IRA is taxed, and estate tax free if you set it up properly. So you have all of those advantages of the RMD leverage strategy, and they're all explained in the Bombshell Battle Plan report that you can get on our website, Estate Planning Made Easy, EPMeasy.com. So I highly recommend that you do that you go on and get that book. That'll help you get a strategic plan on how to make sure that your estate is intact, in fact, leveraged, and maximize this part of your estate. Well, the point is, estate planning is who gets what, when they get it, and how they get it. And there are some strategies that you can implement, some strategic moves that you can use and do now to make sure that your estate is passed intact to your family. Estate taxes, sure, there's a big exclusion of $26 million. Sure, there's the IRA tax that was passed by the Secure Act of 2020. And we see all of that. But really, estate taxes and actually income taxes on your IRA, those are voluntary taxes, even for estates in excess of the exclusion. So what I would do if I were you listening to my podcast today is I would go to our website, EPMeasy.com, and take a minute and go surf through it and find out and order these reports. There's several reports on there that you can order, and get your estate analyzed, and have us take a close look at exactly what you have and what your estate is made of. And then together we will lay out your goals and objectives and show you how to achieve those goals and objectives so that you create a powerful, productive posterity, which is, I think, everybody's goal and should be everybody's goal if it isn't. Well, this is David Phillips signing off again for another week. Next week, we will be talking about another subject and another 15 minutes of pure estate planning. Take care and have a wonderful day.